Revelation 17. The Great Harlot, the Scarlet Beast, and the Mystery Explained. The Woman on the Scarlet Beast. One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and spoke to John, saying, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed immorality, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her immorality." The chapter that follows is different from everything before it, because here the angel does not merely show, he explains. For once the imagery is decoded in the text itself, and the reader is told plainly what the beast and its heads are. This is the interpreter's chapter, and it should be read slowly, because what the angel says here governs how the whole second half of the book is understood. So the angel carried John away in the spirit into a wilderness, and there he saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with names of blasphemy, and had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was clothed in purple and scarlet, adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the impurities of her immorality. The picture is a deliberate contrast. The faithful are a bride. This is a harlot. The bride is clothed in clean linen. This woman is draped in the colors and metals of wealth and royalty. The cup in her hand looks golden and costly, and what it holds is filth. She is seduction dressed as splendor, and the splendor is real, which is what makes her dangerous. And on her forehead a name was written, a mystery. Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. The mark again, but now read against the saints who are sealed on the forehead with the name of God. Everyone wears a name. Hers is Babylon, and it is called a mystery, which in this book does not mean a riddle without an answer, but a hidden thing now being revealed. And John saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the witnesses of Jesus. When he saw her, he wondered with great wonder. The angel explains the mystery. And the angel said, "Why do you wonder? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, the beast with the 7 heads and the 10 horns." Notice first what the angel says about the relationship between the woman and the beast. She sits on it. She rides it. The beast carries her. They are not the same thing. The woman is one entity, and the beast that bears her is another. And remembering this guards the reader from collapsing the two together, as we will see when the beast at last turns on the woman it carried. The beast that you saw was, and is not, and is about to come up out of the abyss and go to destruction. And those who dwell on the earth, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will marvel when they see the beast, because it was, and is not, and will come. Here is the dark parody of the one who is, and who was, and who is to come, the eternal God of the book's opening. The beast mimics the divine title with the counterfeit. It was, it is not, it will come again. This is the mortal wound that was healed from the earlier vision, the empire that seemed to die and rise, and the expectation that a dead emperor would return. The beast borrows the cadence of eternity, but its destiny is named in the same breath. It goes to destruction. Then the angel gives the key, and prefaces it with a phrase that signals the reader must think. Here is the mind that has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits, and they are 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he must remain only a little while. And the beast that was and is not is itself an 8th, and is of the 7, and goes to destruction. A note on the 7 mountains. The angel gives 2 meanings for the 7 heads, and the first was unmistakable to any reader in the first century. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. Rome was the city on 7 hills. This was a commonplace stamped on her coins, sung by her poets, known across the empire. A first-century reader hearing of a woman seated on 7 mountains, holding a golden cup drunk on blood, draped in imperial purple and scarlet, did not need the riddle solved. The great city that ruled the kings of the earth in that day was Rome. So, at the level of the carrying power, the beast and its 7-hilled seat, the vision speaks of Rome and her empire. This is the firm ground before the harder question of the woman's own identity is taken up. A note on the 7 kings. The angel then gives the second meaning, and it is the single most important time marker in the book. The 7 heads are also 7 kings, and of them 5 have fallen, 1 is, and 1 has not yet come. This is written as a count, and it is written in the present tense. 1 is, meaning 1 reigns, as John writes. If the kings are Roman emperors, then John is telling the reader in plain sequence that he writes during the reign of the 6th. The count is the strongest internal evidence that Revelation was written early, before the temple fell, rather than late under Domitian as tradition holds. Honesty requires admitting the count is debated, because everything depends on where one begins. Begin with Julius Caesar and count the line. And the 6th is Nero, who reigned until the year 68 and whose persecution of the church was the first and most savage. Begin elsewhere, or count only those formally titled, and the number shifts. The starting point is not certain, and a careful reader should know that. But the most natural count, starting where a first-century writer would most naturally start, lands the 6th king in the very years before Jerusalem fell, and the 7th, who must remain only a little while, fits the brief reigns of the emperors who followed in the chaos after Nero's death. The verse does not prove the early date beyond all dispute, but it points there strongly. And it is difficult to read it as describing a distant future at all, since it speaks of kings who have already fallen, and one who reigns now. A note on the 8th. The angel adds a strange last clause. The beast that was and is not is itself an 8th, and is of the 7. The 8th is both one of the 7 and beyond them, which is the language of the wounded head healed, the empire that seemed finished and returns. This is the same Nero-returned expectation that lay behind the healed deathstroke earlier in the book, the dread that the dead persecutor would come back at the head of an army. The point is not to predict a literal resurrection of a man, but to capture how the beast, the persecuting imperial power, seems to die and yet rises to threaten again, while the angel insists at every turn on its end. It goes to destruction. The 10 horns and the fall of the harlot. The 10 horns that you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but they receive authority as kings for 1 hour together with the beast. These are of one mind, and they give their power and authority to the beast. They will make war on the Lamb, and the Lamb will conquer them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And those with him are called and chosen and faithful. The lesser kings, the subject rulers and allied powers, throw in their lot with the beast for a single hour, a brief and appointed time. They war against the Lamb, and the outcome is stated before the battle. The Lamb conquers. The war the beast wins against the body of the saints is, at the higher level, already lost. Then the angel told John, "The waters that you saw where the harlot sits are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. The many waters on which she sat are decoded, the crowds and nations over whom she holds sway. Her seat is not a place, but a dominion, her power reaching across the peoples. And then the turn that the whole chapter has been preparing. The 10 horns that you saw, and the beast, these will hate the harlot, and will make her desolate and naked, and will devour her flesh and burn her up with fire. For God put it into their hearts to carry out his purpose, to be of one mind, and to give their kingdom to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. Here is why the angel insisted that the woman and the beast were 2 things and not one. The beast that carried her turns on her. The very power she rode destroys her. The kings who served her tear her flesh and burn her with fire. And behind their hatred stands the hand of God, who has put it into their hearts to do his will without their knowing it. The destroyer is itself an instrument. A note on who the harlot is. Now the central question of the second half of the book can be faced honestly, because the chapter has laid both clues on the table. On one side, the woman sits on 7 mountains and is called the great city that rules over the kings of the earth. And in John's day, that city was Rome. On this reading, Babylon is Rome, the imperial power drunk on the blood of the saints. On the other side, the woman is a harlot, and harlotry is the prophet's standing image not for a pagan empire, which never had a marriage covenant to break, but for the covenant people gone unfaithful. She is drunk specifically with the blood of the saints and the witnesses of Jesus. And the next chapter will charge that in her was found the blood of prophets, which is the indictment laid on Jerusalem, not Rome. And the book has already called the great city the place where the Lord was crucified, spiritually Sodom and Egypt, which can only be Jerusalem. On this reading, the harlot is apostate Jerusalem, the unfaithful covenant city, riding on the beast of Rome, allied with the empire against her own Messiah, until the beast she rode turned and destroyed her in the year 70. The 2 readings have divided careful interpreters, and the text holds both threads in tension on purpose. What is striking and decisive for reading this within its own century is that the second reading fits the history with uncommon precision. Jerusalem did lean on Rome, did shed the blood of the prophets and the saints, and was at last burned with fire by the very imperial power she had courted. The harlot riding the beast, then destroyed by it, is the unfaithful city carried by the empire until the empire consumed her. And the angel ended with the plainest words in the chapter. The woman that you saw is the great city that has dominion over the kings of the earth. With that, the mystery is named and the vision closes, and the reader is handed straight into the next chapter, where the fall of this great city is sung out in full. A dirge over a burning city, with the merchants and kings and sailors of the earth standing far off and weeping at the smoke of her burning.